Capability Center. It is essentially a model or operations model where organizations who started doing offshore or outsourcing, they eventually realized that they would want to set up their own centers.
I got to know from business point of view. Now I would like to ask from individuals point of view, those who wish to make a career in AI, generative AI. Would you like to give some advice, or what would you suggest?
Yeah, so I think what we are seeing are very early stage or kind of initial stages of the whole technology landscape. Right?
When you started Cloudmantra, your own organization, so what were the leadership principles that you had in mind when you started?
Right. In fact, what we did is we wanted to kind of look at scenarios where we could kind of have some working principles or framework, right?
Correct.
So we build those working principles, right? As to how we will engage with people, what will be the kind of underlying philosophy, so as to say.
Hello, I am Deepa, your host for the show, and I welcome you to this podcast where we discuss about our challenges and milestones, our mistakes and our takeaways, also our memories and our way forward, all in one podcast, Talent Vibes. Let's talk it out, an OCBS initiative. I'm excited to welcome our today's guest. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Nilesh More. So this is a small gift. Welcome on the show.
Thank you.
And there is one more special gift. This is from Citymali Gardening Solutions Private Limited. This is a Pune-based firm, sir, and they are basically into garden maintenance services, plant rentals, as well as corporate gifting. And they can give services both to your residents also and to corporate offices as well. So those who are willing to avail the services, details are given in the description box. Nilesh More is a distinguished business leader with more than 25 years of experience. He established Cloudmantra, a company that specializes in state-of-the-art cloud computing and artificial intelligence solutions. And he served as its leader for over a decade now. His expertise in cloud computing, artificial intelligence, and generative AI positions him as a trailblazer in the realm of digital transformation. Nilesh works closely with innovative CIOs, business heads, and new founders in industries such as healthcare, manufacturing, media, and technology. Together, they develop new ways to generate revenue or improve operational efficiency by utilizing cloud data and artificial intelligence solutions. Nilesh, holding an MBA in marketing from Symbiosis Institute of Business Management, SIBM, Pune, and a Bachelor of Engineering from COEP Technological University, combines strategic business acumen with profound technical expertise to drive growth and foster innovation. His visionary leadership has been instrumental in establishing Cloudmantra as a frontrunner in AI and technology consulting, showcasing an unwavering pursuit of excellence. So let's get started. Sir, welcome to the show. So sir, as we got to know from your introduction, you are a COEP pass out and then you joined SIBM. So how did you start your career as a bright student of SIBM and COEP? I must say.
Bright, maybe a little overstatement, but I'll start anyways. So I think, as if you really step back in the 90s or the late 90s, campus placements were the only way to kind of start your journey, and then if you are not kind of selected through campus, then obviously you have to kind of find it, or you're on your own in some sense. So but I was extremely fortunate to be placed on campus. So my first job or first break that I got through was with a company called Xerox. Okay, and Xerox is known globally for their sales operations, and they literally kind of created direct sales in some sense. And it was a planned move because I wanted to first do sales and then marketing and strategy and so on and so forth, and in the longer run it kind of paid off. So joined Xerox as a management trainee
Okay.
And then in '99 I joined Infosys. Infosys was again, they had just started hiring lateral entrants. Earlier Infosys used to just kind of get talent from within the organization. So around 4-5 years in Infosys in marketing and strategy. And I think at that point of time I was fortunate to kind of set up a business unit outside of Bangalore in Pune. And because I'm obviously from Pune, so I was pushing for Pune in some sense. After that, I kind of joined Persistent as in the marketing team. Very initial days, worked directly with the senior management and the top management at that point of time. And one of the things that was really kind of missing was actual, international stint. So since if you're in IT and if you have not done an international stint, then it's kind of you haven't really handled the customers directly, etc. So I was in the UK for a few years with Tech Mahindra, and then I came back, and then I had a couple of choices. One was to join a corporate,
established
organization, or join a startup. And I decided to join a startup, and then that startup kind of got acquired by a company called Trizeto. And then Trizeto itself got acquired by Cognizant. And then Trizeto was where kind of set up the GCC for them when GCC wasn't really a name or a brand that one would kind of relate to. So started the GCC for them in India.
So I'll have to stop you here, sir, because you just now used the term GCC. So would you like to explain it in detail, like what exactly GCC means?
Absolutely. So GCC stands for Global Capability Center. It is essentially a model or operations model where organizations who started doing offshore or outsourcing, they eventually realized that they would want to set up their own centers so that they have a better control. They can actually nurture talent within their organizational structure per se. And that's how GCCs kind of came about. So and today if you really see GCCs, they are not just an unit where you outsource work or activities to do cost arbitrage, but to actually create and nurture global talent. So there are organizations today who are actually getting talent for their global operations or global roles to the level of global CTOs or even CFOs and even CEOs as a matter of fact. And that's what GCCs really stand for.
So we are getting good exposure.
Absolutely. I mean, GCCs are a great way for youngsters to start their careers and become a domain expert. So if there is a healthcare related GCC or a financial services or a bank or so on and so forth, so it's a very good kind of ground for people to start, move, or even scale their careers.
So on one side I can see for talent that we have, it is good for them that they are getting exposure. But on the other side, is there something like because of this, there is a talent war between IT and GCC?
Yeah, absolutely. There's no question about it. So talent war, essentially you're looking at the same pool of people whom you want to attract, and so that they can deliver their best performance in that organization. And therefore GCCs do come with like deep pockets, right? So that's definitely a kind of a competition when it comes to IT services, but obviously salary or compensation is not just the only criteria that one would look at. It's also your career path. It's whether you want to specialize in a particular vertical or not. All of these considerations are definitely there. And eventually, I think that talent war has only kind of helped people to do better, right? So if there is a competition, which only means that people or the organization or the ecosystem kind of benefits from it, right? So definitely talent war, no question about it. But I'm sure IT services organizations are also kind of catching up. Eventually, the benefit or the advantage that some of the GCCs have will obviously kind of weigh in with the advantages to work with IT services companies or even other global multinationals who have their operations here. So
now since we are discussing about GCC, and as you mentioned, that term was not there probably when you actually set up a GCC. So I would like to understand what are the factors that are required to become a successful GCC?
Sure. Yeah. It's a very important question because, like I said, the first part is not just cost arbitrage. It was there maybe a few years ago. The criteria essentially are surrounding various factors, right? So if you look at it purely from a HR point of view, then how well I culturally align my India operations or GCC operations to the organizational culture, right? That can be one of the metrics. So these metrics, once you set them up, are important for you to follow, right? It's not just cost arbitrage. Of course, it is one of the criteria, but not the only one. So I would say, what are the new products or services that you are able to launch in your market becomes a factor. What are the innovations that you generate? So, for example, how many patents are filed from GCCs? Right? These are some of the criteria that you can set to be able to set a KPI or a metric to evaluate success, and it's a kind of work in progress. It's never that you say, okay, I'm going to headcount is just one of them. Somebody says that I want to have 1,000 people GCC from India. That can be one, but it's not just the number game. It goes beyond that.
So there are other parameters as well.
There are other parameters. Nurturing talent, creating that talent, giving them a path. Even a very simple metric like attrition, right, is a very important factor. A lot of organizations did feel in the initial period that India attrition is very high, which is the case, right? And obviously you have to devise certain ways to keep the talent in your organization. And I kind of believe a very wise man who is a known face of IT services had said this, that people are the biggest asset, and every day the asset kind of goes back home, and it is my duty as a leader to kind of get them back the next day, right? Give them enough work and enough motivation for them to get them back.
So true.
So that's the way I look at GCCs or in general organizations.
Given my background, I can completely relate with this, and I think irrespective of industries, we all are facing similar issues in terms of managing the talent in our industries.
Absolutely. And I think there is one more crucial factor which people speak about, but I think if you look at the terms, and for the lack of better terms, you have Gen Zs and you have Gen X and all of that, right? I think there is a natural cultural shift which happens as the workforce changes. And when that change is happening, you have to align the way you would, kind of get the maximum out of them. So I think that's a factor as well.
So maybe we have to relook at our strategies, our policies, and all of that.
Absolutely. No question around that. One of the things that I have, having kind of then, worked with a varied set of people throughout the career, be it in sales, strategy, corporate, marketing, etc., is that people align very well to vision, mission. If you kind of align them, if you kind of communicate to them, and then over a period of time, you have to keep on reinventing. You can't just, sit on your laurels and say, I was the biggest organization, or I was X, or I was Y. It takes very few years for disruption to happen now, especially with the new technology. Absolutely. So I think innovation, keeping the ball rolling when it comes to kind of giving the most challenging task, giving them a ground that they can excel is also important from a talent management point of view.
Sure. So what I understand is, okay, so you started a startup, you had something in mind why you took that decision, and then you were settled. Like, of course, there were acquisitions happening, you were getting that exposure as well. So then what made you think of, again changing the path and starting your own firm?
Sure. Like I mentioned to you, right, I moved back to India in 2010. And at that point of time, the idea was to eventually start, right? I didn't know what it was, whether it was, what kind of shape, form it will take. But the idea was to do something on your own. And the reason was, very simple, is that I started kind of looking at what I do, or what is my strength, or what are my weaknesses. And I realized that, my strengths lie in kind of convincing people that, you can do the work for them, which is the sales part of it. and then actually kind of doing it, right?
Right.
So, and because I was actually working in a corporate structure and in an environment like that, I felt that I was kind of ready after, say, 17, 18 years in the industry to do something on my own. And I think that was a very simple trigger that we started off. And then obviously the reality hits, which is different altogether when you do. So, kind of moving into that journey, it's when you have a company umbrella over your head, it's a very different thing.
Right.
I'm sure you also realize that at the end of the day when,
Definitely.
I believe you also kind of did
Yes.
that move.
Yes.
So it's very different in a corporate structure inside an organization, but the thing completely changes the moment you make that switch.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a great ride for anyone who enjoys it. If you don't enjoy
What you're doing.
not just what you're doing, obviously you have to enjoy what you're doing, but if you don't if you don't thrive in uncertainty, then perhaps it's a challenge.
Okay.
Because when you get into a startup mode, uncertainty is something that you live with day in and day out, right? Today, let's say we started off with services, then we built on products, etc. So, all of those learnings have been there. And that journey has been extremely, kind of fulfilling. Initially, when you look, the whole perspective changes, and I can kind of talk about that subsequently as what happens.
Sure. We'll discuss more about it in detail. So to start with, I would like to understand, when you started Cloudmantra, your own organization, so what were the leadership principles that you had in mind when you started?
Right. In fact, what we did is we wanted to kind of look at scenarios where we could, kind of have some working principles or framework, right?
Correct.
So we build those working principles, right? As to how we will engage with people, what will be the kind of underlying philosophy, so as to say.
Right.
And I think those kind of guided the way we build the leadership, kind of traits out of that, right? So I think some of the guiding principles which have been there with me since early days is like basically under promise and over deliver, right?
Okay.
So if I take that as a guiding principle, that essentially when I am kind of looking at the leadership traits, gives a way how people would communicate and what kind of things that you can do or can't do, right?
Correct.
So which means that if I am able to do something in X amount of time, then I should not be telling somebody X minus I will do it tomorrow. It doesn't work if you are not able. So you're setting up for failure, right? So we kind of use some of those things. So that is one. Second is because we were in technology and we decided to kind of move into the cloud space per se, and that was very early in the day, in the cloud days itself. We said innovation and outlook towards adoption of newer things is a very important trait for everyone to have, including leaders. Because
change management is the problem or challenge you must have faced?
No, not really. I think because it's a startup, it's you are driving the whole thing from the word go. So we were not really having.
So in
change.
terms of like client, if you want to convince them.
Yeah. So those are different challenges altogether, right? So from that point of view, that's the reason we said if we are not open to innovation and technology, we won't be able to go and convince our customers to do change, right? Like the way you're saying.
Correct.
So changing over from one place always have a friction. So how do we reduce that? So if somebody, and the reason is that if I am not convinced about the technology or the solutions or the things that I'm selling, how will I convince somebody else to do that?
Right.
So that's the other principle that we started off with. And whether you call it leadership or not, it's because the way we were structured. So that's the other thing. And because of this, we started only hiring people with a certain computer science background or technology background.
Right.
So what you decide as a working principle then becomes, a guiding path for your hiring process, your customer, engagement, customer communication. So those are the things that we started doing, and it kind of worked well. So yes, whether we had a very, like a bullet point leadership, this thing, absolutely. I mean, it was a derivative of what we set out as a working principle. That's I can say.
Understood. Okay, and what are the changes over the period of time, like when you started till now in cloud technology?
Oh,
So,
a tremendous amount of changes, right? I mean, not just technology, but like, you kind of asked that question, which is basically change management. It kind of sounds funny now, but we started at a time in working in cloud when cloud was not a very kind of popular name. It was not even mature. In the sense, it was mature enough from a technology point of view, but not in people's mind. So we were, I mean, figuratively or literally were asked to leave the meeting saying that no, cloud is not something that we are looking at, you can go types. So literally getting thrown out of customer premises. Cut to today, where cloud is like, buzzword, everyone is kind of aware of it, etc., which is now happening with AI. So cloud itself has gone through tremendous changes. The technology has definitely matured to the level that it has convinced right from startups to small, medium enterprises to even enterprises to kind of, adopt, even government, right? So very recently we were a part of a team that helped the government to do, certain very large programs for students, right? So those are the kind of things which are there. So mindset has changed.
Correct.
And therefore expectations have changed, right? So that whole path, right? So there is something called as, Forrester wave, where how technology adoption happens. So it kind of goes up and comes down and then again, stabilizes. So we started at the very early stage where it was kind of just peaking, and then people are, were having a little bit of a doubt, and then it will stabilize. So it has happened now. Almost 9 years in that segment has given us that confidence. So that confidence then changed over to, kind of the next wave, which is AI.
Right.
And that's what we are doing now. So in fact, we started working on AI projects as early as 5 years ago. But now AI is known to everyone because of, all of the GPTs and all of the, solutions out there, OpenAI, GPT, Llama, so on and so forth, Gemini with Google. So I think now that next phase. So we have gone through one cycle and we know what the next cycle is hopefully going to be, right? So we are more than ready for it.
So since we are discussing about AI, which is a buzzword now, every common person also knows about AI. Even school-going children are, using AI in WhatsApp, Meta AI and all of that. So how is it impacting businesses and consumers?
Sure. It's a very pertinent question at this stage, because I think, while my own journey has kind of started in with cloud per se, and then, like I mentioned earlier, we moved into AI almost 5 years ago. And now a new paradigm or a new, way the AI solutions are shaping has kind of, like you said, everyone is using AI. WhatsApp, if you open WhatsApp, you have Llama, which is Meta. Then you have ChatGPT, which is like everyone's favorite at this point of time. Last week we had DeepSeek from China, which is kind of disrupted the market in a very big way, right? So if you kind of step back a bit, in 2000 internet kind of happened, right? Internet became mainstream in the year after Y2K, and so what we are seeing today is the very first version of what AI can technically do, right? So think of it like Web 1, which was very simple websites, maybe hotmail.com as an email, etc.
Right.
And then cut to today, which is Web 2 or even Web 3, is where you have mobile, you have, obviously internet-enabled devices, you have IoT devices, you have wearables. So that whole technology has gone through a massive, transformation. So AI today is in a very early stage of making that impact. So you can imagine what can only imagine what can happen 10, 20, 30 years down the line, when the technology matures, when you have more solutions, more applications which will impact. So today AI can do certain things like generate content. If you ask it to book or kind of create a trip for you, it will literally create a very nice trip for you, saying that, okay, you can stay here, these are the areas, these are the stuff that you can do, etc. It's kind of help you plan. So assistants or pilots, co-pilots are something that will help individuals. The similar or same kind of a philosophy or technology will be used by businesses in their application.
Exactly.
Right? So I won't take the name, but there are organizations who are helping their agents or their sales agents with AI so that AI can give you the best mutual fund or the best insurance or the best solution that you're looking for.
Is it?
So that itself is going to create so much impact.
Right.
So today, very small example, you go to take an insurance and that insurer will kind of look at your age and maybe some history, etc. etc. Very bare minimum things that you'll take and they'll give you. In future, all of these can be extremely customized to your individual this thing, saying that if you are at this age, these are the stuff, these are the kind of things.
This is your family background,
this
maybe.
Is the family history, maybe, all of that. It is both good in the sense that it can be, important for that company. It is also good for you so that you can take care of, whatever health related issues, challenges that you may face in future, right?
Right.
So the customization will become extremely, personal. AI is impacting healthcare, AI is impacting finance, AI is impacting every industry that you can think of.
Correct.
In fact, one of the things that we built was an AI solution for museums. Okay, and that was in 2020.
Which is so interesting.
Yeah, so we built something for University of Oxford. Okay, and it's all there in public domain, so I can speak freely about it. So we were a part of their Create Tech program, and we built something for them way back in 20 as unfortunately as the pandemic was unfolding. But it was also an area which was a time when it was very exciting for us because we were doing and building it for them. And we built 5 such solutions which were used. It impacted them to the level that researchers could save 90% of their time doing a particular task. 90 or even more than that. Something that would take them around 3 to 4 days manually was being done with AI and machine learning in less than 10 minutes.
So could you please elaborate, sir? Because sitting here, I can't imagine what AI would do in a museum or a researcher's life.
If you could sure, I can elaborate on that. So let's say
one example if you could give.
So every museum has curators and researchers and and they have very limited fundings, etc. So when they go out on the field and let's say there is a researcher or a PhD or whoever finds fossil, right? And that fossil is a very delicate, thing which is, buried underground. And when you excavate, they end up taking pictures, right? Now you are out there in some, remote location, maybe in the heat, and you are capturing those images and stuff, right? And when those images are getting captured, these are very high resolution image. So even a small shake will change the picture a bit, right? Now they end up taking thousands such pictures, because they have to capture that fossil
from
or whatever
angle
for each angle, except how it, and not just angle. As you discover and as you are kind of fully taking that fossil out from a small portion to the whole fossil getting exposed, it's a very highly skilled task so that you don't damage the fossil itself. So you kind of take it, expose it, and then while you're doing that, you're taking pictures and so on and so. Now once that happens, you kind of go back and then you're trying to align them in such a way that you don't miss out anything, right? So all of this is manual. We built a solution which is a vision solution, which did this task within 10 minutes, right? So that this is just one of the examples. So why it is important? A researcher, if spending 3 or 4 days of his work into something which is as manual as this, he's better off doing something else, right? It's a very small use case, but a very impactful use case, right?
Understood.
A similar thing, and this was pre whatever AI we are seeing today. It was much before that.
Right.
So we built machine learning algorithms around it. We used tools, technologies, mostly open source, and then kind of built it out. And this was one of the things. Then we've done something for coinages, which is Roman provincial coinage. Then we did something for gems. We have done something. So the other one is Museum of Natural History, right? So these are all natural history related stuff. So that's the kind of work that we started, did that. We've also done similar work for organizations where I could, during the pandemic again, internet connectivity was paramount. So you could not afford to have no internet at home, which meant that the customer service was always getting calls, my internet is down, this, that. So this organization came to us and says, how can I predict when my next failure is going to happen? And so we built an algorithm where we could predict with 90% accuracy that a certain network device is going to fail.
My God. It's so interesting.
That is something which impacted their call volume.
Right. Absolutely. Customer service call volume must have come down drastically.
So that was one of the things that we did for them. And again, so these are things which are only going to get better as the future comes.
Correct. So basically, I think there is not even a single industry wherein we have not touched AI.
Yeah, absolutely. There is no industry which is going to be left untouched with AI.
Right.
And which only means that obviously it impacts everybody's way of functioning, right? Okay. So once you start building that in your workflow or processes, the way you would enable talent is going to change, or is already changing.
Correct.
Like I mentioned about the company which is enabled their sales staff with agents. So everyone has a co-pilot, everyone is going to. So I think that's what we are kind of looking at. So this is like digital side of things. But then think of industries which are manufacturing, which are more physical devices. There are certain industries who have to have downtime because of compliance.
Okay.
So their factory has to be shut down, and then you have to completely do a maintenance,
right?
And then kind of start back again.
Correct.
There are certain industries, because of downtime, their hit on the balance sheet is close to $1 billion. So if you look at oil and refineries or chemical plants and all of those, if they have a downtime of let's say 30 days, it costs them millions or billions of dollars. With AI, that even if you do a 10 to 20% of reduction, so from 30 days, you bring that to 24 days, you're literally saving them close to 200 million or 300 million dollars per cycle.
My God.
Per plant. So that's the impact that is going to have.
The impact is so huge. It's like huge, beyond our imagination.
It's huge. It's like cannot imagine how impactful each industry would be.
Right. No, I was just wondering if this is something that we have done till now. So where we will be, or where this technology will
evolve.
Evolve maybe after 5 years or so.
So see, I think the mainstream, right, what people use today, like people like us or organizations who leverage AI and kind of in their stack, in their technology stack, there is a bigger kind of play happening in the research, academia, etc., right? So that pace is kind of getting faster and faster. So basically it took years for OpenAI to do, or any of these organizations to come to their first version. It has just taken them a few more, just a year to come to their third or fourth version of their iteration. So that space is kind of getting faster.
Right.
It's anyone's imagination where things would be, but I think where it is evolving is obviously it is impacting every industry, every person, every role in a different way, directly or indirectly. You may be a consumer and not use AI at all, but people who are providing services to you are using AI anyways, or you're going to use. So you can expect a better service. You can expect a better, optimized service, products, and so on and so forth, or customized for that matter. So I think from a consumer point of view, it's only good,
beneficial,
it's only better. From businesses, of course, it's a completely new paradigm that you would use to build applications, build technology, build solutions, build products, build services. So that's the reason you see so many organizations today kind of invest deeply in AI, because this is, like I said earlier, it's like similar to what happened with internet.
That is what actually I was thinking about. As a consumer, no doubt we are very happy about AI and our lives are touched, like in all aspects. But is the same approach there when it comes to businesses? Like, are businesses open to this transformation? And if I'm sure you must have faced some challenges in terms of businesses not ready to accept that change, or maybe invest in this. So what advice would you like to give to such businesses who are hesitant?
Yeah, so I won't say advices, or maybe because as a consultant we keep on doing that with advisory services. But I think A is whether AI is, so it's not a question of if, it's a question of when.
Okay.
Which is what has happened with cloud, and we have seen that.
Correct.
Right? It also happened with certain technologies in past. The initial part of my career, I've seen organizations being very adamant about certain technologies, then they moved to a different architecture. We saw that with cloud, where companies were not very open to it, but now are like, its cloud is now become like the inherent part of what they do.
Right.
I think with AI there are a lot of concerns which are in some sense genuine questions and concerns that any technology leader will have around data security, data privacy, in general security. In AI or Gen AI, there is something called as hallucination, which is basically accuracy, etc.
Okay.
So the challenges are there or were there. There are ways to kind of mitigate those challenges.
Okay.
And I think in my sphere of vision, wherever we are working, talking with customers, they have already started doing some amount of kind of proof of concepts or some amount of this thing. So if you're not in, if you're kind of out, in the sense that whether AI will replace people or jobs, etc. The answer is kind of AI will replace people and therefore businesses who don't use AI. So it's a
different perspective.
Yeah, so it's a hard truth. That is what is happening. I always end up giving example of a very famous company, which is called Zeroda.
Right.
Zeroda was started by two brothers, right? In like very small operation. They have disrupted the entire brokerage or equity investment industry.
True.
With number of people which is 1/10 of the organizations which were established players. With literally 1/10 of people, right? And now these organizations are coming out with the kind of services that Zeroda has already kind of mastered.
Right.
So this is like a very kind of humorous or a funny way of looking at it. Is that somewhere someone, a 20-year-old someone, is working in his with his friends and disrupting your industry, and those are the challenges.
Multiple examples.
Yeah, it's multiple. So many examples are there, right?
True.
So at the end of the day, if you look at Uber, completely disrupted taxi. You look at Netflix, kind of changed the way you consume TV or content or streaming content, right?
Absolutely.
You look at so many of them. They are completely disrupted by people who believed that technology will, kind of change, and they've done. And I think it's not the question of whether you want to, you don't have a choice. It's that, and the faster you adopt, the faster you will, kind of innovate, disrupt your own workflows and cycles, the more future ready or more future proof you would be, as opposed to saying that, okay, let me sit and watch what's happening and then I'll play the catch-up game. Because the catch-up game has become very, very small. The window of catching up is getting smaller and smaller, and that's what is kind of guiding and driving industries. People in manufacturing or non-digital segment, right? They are perhaps been the very I'm not kind of criticizing them, but I'm just saying that there are certain industries who adopt technology or new technology very fast. So if you look at banks and BFSI segment, they are fastest to adopt new technology,
right.
Because and that's the way they have been. I think that has spilled over to different industries, so they have also kind of hastened or fastened up their way of doing things. Traditional industries, I won't kind of call out as any specific industries, but traditional industries have to do certain things differently so that they can kind of be competitive enough with somebody else who's kind of making the same work, same product, or same services that
they're counterparts from the same
same industry. I think nobody believed that the entire manufacturing can be outsourced to any other country. So that happened in 60s and 70s in the US, where the entire manufacturing kind of moved to other locations. So I think if that happened and it took 50-60 years for that disruption to kind of set in, that cycle is getting faster.
Right.
And I think that's where the whole the whole challenge as well as excitement lies as to how these companies can adopt AI to remain competitive and future proof.
Correct. So to summarize, it's just like one line that you said, it's not the question of if, it is the question of when.
Absolutely. It's not the question of if, question of when.
Okay. So in this journey, what were the lessons that you learned? Because when I'm listening to all these stories, I'm sure you must have faced a number of challenges along with lessons learned. So more than focusing on the challenges, like I suffered from this and there were so many challenges, I think we should more focus on the lessons learned.
Yeah.
So for audience, someone probably who is thinking of starting a niche consulting company, so would you like to share some of the lessons?
Definitely. I mean, so I think like I mentioned, I was fortunate to kind of work in organizations and under leaders who are like celebrity business and legends in their own right? So and learned a lot from them, directly, indirectly, looking at working with them, etc. That said, I think, like you rightly pointed out, there are no mistakes. I always, when you're in a corporate, you are, or rather as a mindset, we are brought up to say mistakes are bad, right? And maybe it's a more Indian thing in some way, or now maybe I think to a larger extent it can be even global, where you say, okay, mistakes are bad. So I think that's the first thing that you should kind of get out of your head, that mistakes are bad. There are no mistakes, there are only learnings.
Right.
How do you kind of take it on the chin and kind of move from that? So that's the first thing that I think I learned very early in the day, where so that's one. Second is, like, I think uncertainty, and I perhaps talked about it.
Right.
Embracing uncertainty.
Okay.
There is going to be uncertainty, and how well you thrive in uncertainty helps you kind of move forward, right? And I'm not saying uncertainty means you just get up one day and start doing whatever you want to do.
Absolutely
right? I
not.
don't think I'm alluding to that, but uncertainty in terms of, in spite of having a plan, in spite of having your best effort, in spite of having your best intentions, things don't work out, right? So whatever those uncertainties of market, technology, so on and so forth is. So I think that's the other one, that's the other thing that I kind of looked at, and as a as somebody who been through the journey so far has kind of looked at. The most important part I feel is people.
Okay.
Right. I think whether you're doing business in the B2C segment or you want to start in B2C or B2B or whatever, right? Any segment, there are people involved in every stage of whatever, whether you are internal to your organization or from a customer point of view, market, ecosystem, partners, suppliers, all of that. It's all driven by people. So, learn to work with different mindsets, right? Different cultural, ways of doing things. I mean, somebody had jokingly told me that if you can run a business in Pune, you can run a business fairly anywhere in the world, right? And it has got its own, kind of background behind it. But it's just that, culturally, you are aligned to so many things, right? So Pune does business differently than you would do a business with a person in Mumbai, or maybe, international customers are very different to kind of, from a cultural point of view, right? So there are certain things that you can take for granted while working with Indian customers. You can never even, think of, using that tactic or that kind of a strategy with customers outside of India. So I think that's there. So people are a very intrinsic part. So these are 2-3 things, I think fairly what I have kind of looked at and learned and tried to wade around in some sense or the other. And at the end of the day, I think the faster you learn to take no and move on, the far better it is for you, right? So if you I'm not saying that you should not try, but there is a timeline that you should say that, okay, these are the things that I would do, these are the time. So have some kind of
you should be open to accept that.
Have some ways of outlets, open to accepting whatever is there, and kind of move on. I have seen because the reason I say this is because startups essentially in the technology field would eventually have to hire people, train them, and then see them leave, and then you start again, right? So I think
it is a cycle.
That's a cycle. The faster you accept that it's going to be a cycle, the better it is, because then you're prepared for it, as opposed to kind of then saying, oh my god, why did this happen? I have trained this person, now he's going away, etc. etc. Right. So I think that's the area which I think investing in the right kind of people, and when I say people, is not just your colleagues who are there with you, but people in a wider sense of things, right?
Understood.
Whether it is somebody who is helping you as a vendor, as a consultant, as even somebody's so that's the third thing. And most importantly, and that's what happened with me, is having 2 or 3 mentors whom you can go back and kind of literally share whatever that you would to get the right kind of mentorship. Look at people who can tell you that this is the mistake that you're doing, as opposed to going to somebody who only praises whatever you're doing, right? Because just having, so in a nutshell, somebody who can tell you that you're going wrong and tell it to you on the face, and kind of and you have that rapport, and
you also should have that acceptance level.
Absolutely. So I think having mentors is very important. There are organizations who do mentorships and so on and so forth. Find somebody, and I've tried to help some startups and custom in some ways, or friends in some whichever way capacity I can, so that they don't go through the same learning curve, right? So I think that's the journey in some sense. Whether it is mistakes, learning, etc., it's a matter of perspective. But keep on moving, right, at the end of the day.
So that's the objective of our podcast as well. So since you have traveled so far and there are lessons with you, so why someone should again commit same mistakes and learn same lessons?
Absolutely.
So it is better that they listen to this and learn from his mistakes, or his lessons learned more than mistakes, I would say.
Sure.
Also, I like the way you were speaking about human factor. So that is crucial in each business, because end of the day it is human who is going to plan the strategy and implement as well. So that human factor is very crucial irrespective of the business that you are doing.
Definitely.
Sure. Okay, so I got to know from business point of view. Now I would like to ask from individual's point of view, those who wish to make a career in AI, generative AI. Would you like to give some advice, or what would you suggest?
Yeah, so I think what we are seeing are very early stage, or kind of initial stages of the whole technology landscape, right? So I think there are two aspects of generative AI, at least. AI, the whole traditional AI, I hate to use that word traditional already, because it's AI at the end of the day, and generative AI is kind of AI. So AI, obviously is a programming, so you require, programming mindset. You have to be a developer, or to build applications like that. There is a paradigm which is moving where the AI will write applications for you, right? Where you just give a brief, and it, just like the way you write a prompt today and it writes a blog, the way things are looking is that the AI itself will program, etc., etc. So which means that there are 2 sets of AI related, kind of skills that are evolving, at least, now. One is to build AI solutions, right? Actually create AI applications.
Understood.
Right? So people who are building, let's say, foundational models, or large language models, right? So on and so forth. So that's a different, kind of skill set, right? To write AI, build it. The second is that use that and then build applications, right? Or make a part of applications, or kind of that. And in some sense, third is literally, I wouldn't say literally it's a AI skill per se, but how do you interface with AI the most efficiently, right? So, people gave it some kind of a name called prompt engineering a year ago when this whole Gen AI thing kind of started.
Okay.
And I think it goes beyond that, right? So it's not just prompt engineering, and there was I can now only call it rumor. It's that prompt engineering jobs will become the future, etc. It's all just kind of gone away. In some sense, yes, it remains, but it's not like as pervasive as what you see today, right? I mean, at least I haven't seen LinkedIn jobs where say prompt engineers required, right? I don't think that's happening.
I've not even heard this term. So what I understood correctly is prompt engineer is the one who will take the requirement from client and he'll make the team to brief about the requirements. Is it something like that?
Something similar, but in the sense that not just so somebody who optimize the prompt in such a way that you get the best result, right? So that was what, but it's just fizzled out. It was just a kind of small flare somewhere. So I think what we are seeing today is that these are the two different kind of core AI jobs which are evolving, right? Options are evolving, which means that you have to be a good programmer, no question about it. You need to have a good grasp of technology, programming, understanding, the way systems function. What also is important is that you need to also have a little more knowledge of how other systems work, right? Which are currently there with customer. So you just can't say, okay, I am just an AI developer and I don't know how something else works. It may not work because then you'll have severe limitation. And because of these 2 or 3 different kind of roles that are getting involved, eventually you will have AI architects, what traditional software has gone through.
Understood.
I'm sure that is also going to happen. Or maybe the architects themselves will specialize in the AI side of things. So your roles will evolve, etc., etc. I think that's what, as of now, it's looking like. What future has in store is something maybe a little more advanced, where, like I said, the biggest use case that people are talking, even people like Eric Schmidt, etc., are talking, are where I say that AI built me TikTok, right? Or AI built me Netflix. And it is able to go and program it for you, which is unimaginable now, right?
Right, absolutely.
So if since in the world closer to you, say AI build me a performance management system and it is coded it for you, right?
That is the day I'm waiting for.
So that's the utopia that we are talking about.
Right.
When it happens, if and when it happens, it's for future to kind of unfold. But at least that's what things are kind of being forecasted. And therefore, AI-related jobs, AI-related development, technical, non-technical, functional, all of those things will be there. There will be an optimization. That's what I feel, that I'm not predicting here. I'm just saying that what is seen today from historical perspective, if you go back in history, what kind of roles have evolved, I think we can safely assume that these are the kind of things would be there. And whether they will replace human beings is an answer or is a mystery. But they will definitely, help us optimize what we do.
Make our job easier.
Make our life easier, make our jobs easier than what they are already.
Sure. So during our discussion, there was one more factor that I noticed is your international exposure in terms of clients also, and in terms of when you were an employee also, you got to work in UK with one of the company. So has it helped you in success of Cloudmantra?
Any exposure, any learning is definitely good.
Right.
I think international, if you are planning to build a business that caters to international clients, then it's a kind of important point that you have some kind of a way of having dealt with them. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be there, but it helps a lot, right? So it helps you culturally align with them, the way people think, work, act, what is acceptable, what is not, the way, so I think that definitely is a important point. But it may not be the only point, right? At the end of the day. It also helps to, kind of align simple things like, working with time zones, right? So if you're working in a US customer, and if you have never worked with international client, just the fact that there are 4 time zones itself, kind of changes a lot of things for people.
It is a surprise.
Yeah. So if somebody says, "Acha, we'll meet at 9 o'clock," if you're talking to somebody in India and say meet at 10, 10 is 10 IST, right?
Correct,
There's no other
correct.
10. But when you're talking to somebody in the US, 10 what? 10
Right.
Eastern time, Western time. Small
It could
things
be as
like
simple
that, right?
as
So
that.
it can be as simple or not, very basic as that.
Correct.
And then to the level of, the way they work, their technology expertise and the technology stack that they perhaps use is, kind of very
Right.
advanced in some sense. It's not necessary, but most of the enterprises definitely. But I think at the end of the day, it definitely helps you to have some form or the other.
Understood.
And I think you can technically start catering to India customers, get your product validated, etc. Unless you have a case like, for example, if you're working in US healthcare, you cannot really, use India healthcare experience to US healthcare. It's just not there. So I think those are the kind of things that, help.
Okay. So we discussed at length about the business, about Cloudmantra, about AI and everything around. However, there is another side to your personality. So from our research, we got to know that you are a good vocal artist and a guitarist. So the question that comes to my mind is, when you're managing so much already, how do you take out time for these hobbies or your me time?
Right. So I think, for me personally, right? So when I'm actually doing music, work is extracurricular for me.
Okay.
You have to segregate your, kind of mindset in that way.
Okay.
And that's something, I don't just look at it as a hobby or anything. It's just kind of part of me. So it's always run parallel throughout my, right from student days to now.
Oh.
It has been a parallel, kind of activity that it has to be there. I mean, in absence of that, this doesn't work, right? So that's the way I look at any of those, and I think that's.
But this is so uncommon. Usually, when people get into jobs, and especially in their entrepreneurship journey, it becomes very difficult. So again, my question is, how do you take out time? I can't.
I don't know. I mean, it's just been my DNA.
Just because it was
sense.
your passion.
Yeah. So if you look at my CEO, earlier we spoke about my college and stuff. So I think COEP has been a very important part of my personality per se, in some sense.
Okay.
On me as a person.
Right.
When I say personality, so as a person, it's been a very intrinsic part, not because of anything else, but purely because of the sheer amount of time and effort that I could devote to music.
Okay.
Even while doing engineering, right? So I was fortunate to have my college ecosystem in such a way that it wasn't my professors etc. would actually encourage me to do things. So that was very different. I mean, you would imagine college
engineering college
that too, where people are not looking at extracurricular activities and they have a very different view. It wasn't that. Very fortunate. And I think that really carried. So because then I could, align with people. That's the reason I said aligning with people is very important.
Okay.
So from that point of view, I could take it. In fact, to the level that Infosys, we had a band called Infosys, whatever the name, I forgot the name now. But there was a Outlook magazine, and I don't know whether I've kind of shared that, but I'll share that if not. Where there is, it says Infosys Rock, and our band was there on the face of Outlook magazine in 97 or 98. So I think that was, and there again, my bosses were very appreciative of the fact that I do music as a parallel this thing. So I never, internally I never felt parallel, track. And I think that's something which I feel that every individual, should have, one part, one hobby, whatever you want to call it, where you just, literally be yourself. And second is, when you are in that zone, you kind of, it's like a complete stress buster for you.
Right.
There are people who like to cook. There are people who like to, exercise all of these are a part of that. There has to be something which runs parallelly that gives you a element where you can actually, leave certain pressures or whatever aside and then be yourself. For me, luckily, it was music. So, and music, you can only do so much individually, right? I mean, so because I was a part of so many bands right from beginning, from college, to accompany, kind of in-house bands, etc., etc. And that also carried forward with my professional band. So all my band members are professional musicians. That's their full-time job. They always curse me saying that, what are you doing in corporate and you should be here. But, it's somehow been, lucky to have managed. It has reduced substantially since the time I started with Cloudmantra, but it has not completely stopped. So there is always that thing where I can, kind of go back and, jam with them and, work with them, maybe go for some events and perform if required. But yeah.
Sure. So next time we will invite the entire, band and we will have the show.
Sure.
Okay. So thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your time, your expertise, sharing those experiences with us. And it is something very different from, what my career has been about. So I'm sure even audiences, there would be many of them who don't know much about AI. It is just the buzzword that we know, and we just are used to use beta AI. That is what we know. So it was such an amazing and insightful journey that we could listen to. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Pleasure is mine. Thanks for having me over.
Thank you, sir.